Hello, everyone. I wonder if there's some feedback going on from someone's stream. I hope not. Okay, well, hello. Welcome to the Right Crowd 2021, a virtual literary expo. I am so very excited to present the final panel of the first weekend, which is panel of poets. I wanted to close out with an experience because not only are we going to have these amazing people and poets share some of their answers. There are going to be questions. I want to know all about what goes on in your brain and ask for some author and literary advice and writer's advice and poetry advice, but also just experience a beautiful reading. We're going to be able to hear from each and every one of you, and it's going to be a fantastic time.
Yes.
So I already see someone put a heart on Facebook. Thank you. So as people are hopping on, please feel free to share the stream. And if you have any questions or if you'd like to share anything, please feel free to comment. I can bring your comment up on screen and we can make this as interactive as possible. So we can begin while people join in with very quick introductions, one by one in order on screen. Please state your name and where you are tuning in from and maybe what you've written or your genre of poetry, starting with Mr. Frank Brewster III.
Thank you. First and foremost, thank you, Katelynn Rentería, for the honor of being invited along with this incredible panel here that you've created for us. And again, my sincerest thanks to you and everyone that's helping you put this on, which I believe is an army of one, just yourself. I am Frank Brewster III. I am an author, obviously, and a poet. I was a former band director for 30 years here in the Rio Grande Valley. I taught at 4 different school districts, and along the way, one of my beautiful principals, Mr. Danny King, way back when in the day, when I was a band director at Hidalgo ISD, said you need to take a Writing Institute program, which is called the New Jersey Writing Institute program. And I'll share a little bit more about that in a little bit. And that's what got me started in poetry by taking a summer class. Who would believe? And added to that, I became what I like to think of myself as an educational now author. And I have, of course, along with me, not with me right now, but an army of Hispanic authors, which is my family. But good to see all of you, and a happy Sunday to everybody out there.
Yay.
Thank you so very much for sharing. And next up, we have Mrs. Priscilla Celina Suarez. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you tuning in from? The title of your written works, and maybe what genre do you write? The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. So I'm tuning in from McAllen, and I actually was maybe about 20 years ago or so. I first came about some open mic readings with local poets like Daniel Garcia Ordaz and Lady Mariposa, Amado Valderas Tijerina. And so seeing them perform, seeing them share their work, it just, for me, I was just, blown away and really inspired to start also writing poetry. So when I write poetry, it has a lot to do with our region. It has a lot of Spanglish, a lot of dichos. I write about my family. I write about our region. And so it's a lot of like memoir poetry, I guess, if I were to put it in a genre. I guess that's what I would say. But yeah, and I'm constantly going to open mics here in the Valley, amazed at what other writers from the Valley have to say. I'm always so, like astounded by our voices here in the Valley and just how powerful the spoken word is.
Thank you so very much for sharing. And our next panelist we have is Mr. Anthony Ripp. Tell us, where are you tuning in from? A little bit about yourself and maybe what type of poetry you like to write. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Katelynn. I appreciate your time and making some space for me. I'm coming at you guys from Harlingen, and I'm a nurse by day and a writer at all other times, I guess. My poetry is a wide range of just stuff, classic poetry to beat poetry to spoken word to I love writing monologues, just everything I can get my hands on. I don't like to be tied to any one genre. I'm constantly looking for the next thing. or for the oldest thing that I never knew about. I'm still a reasonably new writer, so I'm constantly out there in search of the one that got away. Which, fortunately for me, it's still early enough in my career to where there's a whole bunch of them. So it's just a treasure trove for me out there to come around not only local artists but people that I've met on the online forums now throughout the pandemic and stuff like that. So, just an everyday writer, and I've always said that my poetry, I don't know, I never write to make a point. I write to make you feel something.
I love that. Thank you so very much. And that's going to tie into the first question I have for you all momentarily. But our final panelist here, Miss Julieta Corpus, please tell us where you are tuning in from, a little bit about yourself, and maybe what genre of poetry or things that you like to write.
Okay, well, let's see. I'm in a parallel universe called Donna, Texas. Picturesque and quite surreal. Infamous. I've been writing from an early age. I'm attracted to anything and everything that has to do with emotions. And just like Anthony said a while ago, that's my goal, to evoke an emotion, to provoke an emotion. And so I've been writing, I would say a lot of what I learned in college is called confessional poetry. And just like the name says it, well, let's just say that lately I've been taking out my family's skeletons from the closet and kind of dusting them off and parading them. You know what? Come at me, I tell my family. So no, I will not be invited to Thanksgiving dinner, but that's okay. It sits well with me. I love to write, and I am constantly learning from my peers. And I read a lot of poetry and other genres, and so I would say a lot of romantic poetry, a lot of confessional poetry, and nature. I also write about nature. I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for all your hard work. I know that it takes a lot of effort to put something like this together. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. I know a Sunday evening you chose to be here and share and all these different things, and so I'm very, very grateful for that. And we did have a comment come in from Miss Ana Cavazos on Facebook saying,
Hey,
"Hello, all poets."
Ana. Hola, Ana.
Hi. Hello. And so, again, for anyone watching, please feel free to share the stream. And if you are out there in Facebook or YouTube Landia, feel free to drop a comment, say hello, maybe even ask a question if you're feeling up to it. This is going to be as interactive as possible. And so, some of you all already touched upon it, but you can interpret this question however you'd like. But what is your poetic bread and butter? So while you may, write all sorts of different kinds of things, is there like a certain emotion that you really resonate with, and that's what you tend to write about? Like Priscilla had said, with the culture and the heritage and things like that. Like, is there just a little niche or part of poetry that you just love, whether it be performing it in spoken word or just, writing in the dead of night? That's when it happens the most. What is your poetic bread and butter in the sense of a genre or a theme or a setting? What makes that your special piece of poetry, starting with Mr. Frank Brewster III?
It all, as I was sharing with you earlier, began with Mr. Danny King, who then went on to become superintendent of Hidalgo and, of course, PSJA ISD, that had asked me, but then sat up and said, "You really need to take this course in the summer." And anybody associated with band and or being a band director, your average day start at 12 hours a day. So summer is the time you want to spend with the family, which of course I didn't. But there was a silver lining, because little did I know that this, to answer your question, would propel me to start writing, because someone at that particular gathering workshop during the summer said, "I've been noticing you have rhythm and rhyme in your writing. You are a poet." And I remember saying, "No, I'm not. I'm a saxophonist. I'm a musician. I'm a band director. That's my bread and butter. That's what it is that I do." But I took that little seed that was planted in me, and I kept writing in English until this one day at home, when I took out my pen and paper, and I started writing outside in the porch. And lo and behold, I started writing in Spanish. Little did I know, I had just fallen in love again with now spoken, not spoken, but writing. And through this writing, especially in Spanish, I write in both languages, yes, and I'm now a bilingual dual language author. My literature is now being taught in 21 schools and or school districts. But what it is that I'm sharing with you is that you never really know where this is going to come from, as you've already mentioned. Maybe at 2, 3 in the morning when you're writing, or the thoughts come to racing through your head. But for me, if I don't write them right there in the spot, they're going to be erased from my mind, and they will never ever come back the way at that one moment they're coming into me. These thoughts and words. So I'll share with you, hopefully in a little bit, how I have taken a single poem and or single poems and literally turned them into a book and or 18 versions of books. Um, and this expands, as Julieta was talking about, all different elements of life. But I will end with this. I am totally and completely in love with life and anything and everything under it. So,
All right.
I love that. Thank you so very much for sharing. And Miss Priscilla Celina Suarez, what would you say your poetic bread and butter is? Either the style that you write, or a theme that you continue with, or anything involving poetry. What do you feel you really resonate with?
I've always been a voracious reader since I was a kid. And growing up, I didn't read anything that reflected border life, in particular, our border life here in El Valle. Um, and so when I write, I think I try to reflect our region or our community. It's what I know, but also a part of it, a huge part of my writing process is music. I always have music playing in the background. Music is always like inspiring everything I do. Cuando nos juntamos, whether it's in a fiesta, whether it's we're at a funeral, in every aspect of my life, there's always been music. And, different types of music. So like from here from Frontera, there's different like pop culture. There's rancheras. There's all these different types of music that we grew up listening to here in El Valle. And so when I write, a lot of it is influenced, and a lot of it includes the música. And I actually have a book coming out with Flower Song Press in January, in early 2022, January or February. And the title of it, I always mess it up, but I think the title of it is La La Landia, A Journey Through My Frontera CD Shuffle. And so
Cool.
the majority of the poems, are poems that were influenced by songs or that include music lyrics.
Nice.
But really, música and border life is, a lot of what I write about.
Mhm.
I love
Cool.
that. To be able to incorporate two different, mediums that have that same underlying theme of culture and bring it to life beautifully. Excited for your newest release. Thank you so very much for sharing. And Anthony Ripp, what is your sort of poetic bread and butter, either in the way that you deliver poetry, or maybe a certain topic or theme or emotion that you really try to hit with? What would you say is your big niche for poetry in your own writing?
Well, I am very performance oriented. Much like Priscilla, I write most of my poetry and music. I was a lead singer for a long, long time in a bunch of different bands. So I'm used to performing. I love the performance aspect of it. When I quit doing music is when I really started to take off with poetry. And I like to incorporate that. I like to, again, just evoke as much emotion as possible. I live my life as an artist. I'm surrounded by art constantly. I'm surrounded by rhythm and music and instruments and paintings and just everything. I mean, every inch of my house is covered in art. Um, it's something that I need to survive on a daily basis. And it's the one thing that it's continuously inspiring me as a Hispanic male. We talk a lot about the beauty of our Hispanic heritage, but what's not spoken enough about is the generation of bad fathers that came for such a long time, and the lack of the ability for a lot of males, Hispanic males, because I can't speak for anybody else, right? But for Hispanic males to show emotion, whether it be an extreme sort of excitement or an extreme sort of sadness, right? So I'm writing a series right now that's called Mexico Enough, where I really highlight that about those men that taught you que los hombres no lloran, and what a travesty that has been. Right. So for me, it's not always going to. For me, I don't like to expose all the beautiful stuff because there's so many people doing that already so beautifully, right? And sometimes we have to turn those stones over, man. You got to turn them over and talk about them, because before we can fight the fight for somebody else, we have to fight the fight in our own closets, right? In our own house, in our grandfather's house, in our tio's house. So that's the type of stuff that I bring to the surface, and I've been very fortunate that it's, people have really responded to it. Males, females, it doesn't matter. A lot of people say, man, you know what? Like, that was pretty heavy stuff, but damn, somebody needs to say that, so. And it's not my mission to do it. It's just something that with the passing of my grandparents here recently, I finally have a history to go back to, right? I was living my history still in the present day. And since my grandparents just passed in June at 97 and 93, both of them together 3 weeks apart, it finally got me on my road to my past, right? And my past includes going back and looking back at the archives of the family and of the country and where we came from in Linares, Nuevo León, and Guanajuato, and all these places, right? So it's been a fantastic journey. So, man, just emotion.
I love that. Thank you so much. And we had a comment coming in from Ana Cavazos saying, so very present in our culture, and that is why you stand out, Anthony. Very much so. I feel like art has a special way of starting those tough conversations and having those tough conversations. And it takes a special kind of person to be able to take it from the heart, put it in a written format, and then share it for the world to consume. So thank you so very much for sharing.
Thank you.
And Ms. Julieta Corpus, do you think is your poetic bread and butter?
My
Either
bread
with style
and
or
butter.
theme?
Well, let me tell you, I have run the gamut. As I said, I started writing early on, and I was heavily influenced by the balladeers from the 1970s in Mexico. I grew up in Mexico all the way till I was 10 years old, and so I was completely immersed in the Juan Gabriel, Roberto Carlos, Napoleon, Camilo Sesto. A lot of them were excellent songwriters, and from them I learned rhythm and rhyme, or I was learning without even knowing because I was singing along. And many times I would copy the songs because I used to buy the cancioneros. Back then they had the lyrics printed. Now we can just Google them. But back then you actually had to buy the cancioneros. They were these thin little booklets with the lyrics to all the songs. And so I fell in love with language. And I also fell in love with many of the poets that I still read to this day, like Federico Garcia Lorca, because I came across them in school, in my Mexican textbooks. There was a wide variety of genres of short stories and poetry. And so I was exposed to that. I was exposed to comic books and graphic novels and a lot of telenovelas. So my drama, I want to say, derives a lot from watching telenovelas. No, es tu hijo, y sí es tu hijo, y yeah, all the drama, all the action. And around, I would say 10 years old was when I started falling in love with English, because I would watch the movies from the United States, but with subtitles. And so that was a great motivation to become a speed reader, because I had to keep up with the plot, what was going on in the plot. And it's just a compendium of emotions and sights. And thank God my parents were travelers. And even so, it wasn't worldwide traveling. We traveled a lot between Mexico and the United States. And so I had a lot of experiences to draw from. And I've been writing about those experiences. My mom was a storyteller. She was a great storyteller. And I've been trying to preserve her stories, the ones that I can remember, in short story form, just not the way she used to tell them, but with a lot of the elements. And I feel that in my poetry, I am a storyteller. because I am sharing vignettes from my life, and just and not even using fancy language, even though I do have a master's in creative writing, and even though I am surrounded by those poets who use the what you can term, I guess, flowery language, is I found that it's not for me. I like to write for not for the common folk, I guess you can say, for that person who may not know the $10 word, but she or he will be touched by that more simple word. And I've had people just recently. I shared poetry at TSC, Texas Southmost College, in Espanol, and I had this lady who caught up with me, Julieta, or Miss Corpus. She called me Miss Corpus, and she wanted to she praised my poetry, and she said that it touched her deeply. And right away, she made my day, because that is what I'm after, to touch people in that way, to move them, or to move them to write. That for me is the greatest compliment you can give me. It's like, I listened to you and I picked up a pen or a pencil, or I sat in front of my laptop and I started writing my stories. That for me is the greatest thing that can happen.
I love that. Thank you so very much. And it's all about those connections. Like, writing has
Yes.
a special way of just getting to the heart in ways that other mediums don't. Just you're inside someone's head by reading these words on a page, and it's absolutely but beautiful, beautiful connections that are made. And so we
Yes.
had a comment come in from Miss Rosario Ozuna on YouTube, one book or novel at a time. She says, "Hello, everyone. Hi, Rosario. Thank you for
Hello.
tuning in." And again, everyone on Facebook or YouTube, if you would like to ask a question or drop a comment or say hello, please feel free to do so, and I can bring it up on screen. We can interact, have a fun time. And so my next question would be looking towards the next generation of poets or people that you can possibly inspire. So if anyone is aspiring to be a poet or just a writer in general, what advice would you give to them? Either practical advice, such as like writing styles, things to know, things to keep in mind, or more on like, from the heart and abstract, whatever you would like to share. If someone is an aspiring writer and poet, what advice would you give them? Starting with Mr. Brewster.
Um, the most inspiring thing that I could share with anyone was the very last thing you mentioned, which is it has to come from the heart. Um, si no tienes el corazón para expresar lo que estás escribiendo, entonces, y la audiencia que te va a escuchar no va a escuchar la profundidad de tu alma, lo que vayas a escribir no va a tener sentido para nadie. So, if you cannot, find a way to express yourself, and remembering that not everybody likes everything. You have no idea how many times I have been told by X amount of people, from the least to the most educated person I've spoken with, from time to time, and it's come across, whether it was in Chicago when I was presenting, San Diego, California, Denver, Colorado, um, uh, Louisiana, throughout the entire state of Texas, nationally, internationally, in other expos like this. It's uh, some there are folks that will um, take a liking to what you're writing, and there are folks that won't. But I'll tell you what I just said and clarify what I just said. The folks that take a liking to what you are doing is because they found a connection with you. And that connection is the one that will strike that tone for a long time. And I'll share one more thing. And I like to express this to a lot of folks wherever I do my presentations. But if a teacher sends a child over to a library and says you need to read about X subject, the child will go and pick out the book or what have you, and in most cases, a high percentage, the child will reluctantly do what they need to do, but they're going to come across. But if you send a child at first and you say to them, go find a book that best suits you, that you're into, that you like to. They'll find that book, and then that book is going to lead them to other books of interest within that same subject area, which is exactly what I do with my compositions. With my compositions now, and just FYI, I've taken a single theme, and I'll share this with you. These are now, all of these here, there's 5 series of workbooks now, each one of them. And each one of these 5 series of workbooks all have questions and answers of higher thinking in both languages. But there is something here for everybody, but something here for everybody to discover what's in them through the composition they are studying or reading or what have you. And I think the worst thing you can say to somebody, especially as a student, is you're going to study. No, 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 no. We're going to have fun and we're going to enjoy what we're going to do. The setup is extremely important. And I'll share it. The last thing I'll share this with you is that anything and everything to me, I don't think in words. I don't think in numbers. I don't think in any of that. I think in patterns. My process is through patterns. Anything and everything to me has a pattern in life. But finding that pattern is what I try to communicate to everybody. Where once you have learned something, then you can take that one thing that you've learned and apply it to something else in life, no matter what it is. And that's exactly what is being done at school through critical thinking. And that's why and if I have a chance, I'll share with you my abstract as well, which was adopted with variations through 4 national presentations on my part at NABE. But that's what I have to share.
Thank you so very much. From a practical standpoint, a motivational standpoint, I love it very much. Thank you for sharing. And so, Ms. Priscilla Celina Suarez, if anyone is aspiring to be a poet or aspiring to be a writer, or maybe even since you're published through the author's perspective, what advice would you give to someone aspiring to write or be a poet or publish?
I think as writers, as poets, as authors, we second doubt ourselves. Like we doubt ourselves, we doubt our work. And I think for me, what helped me actually go into like starting getting stuff publishing, because that's scary, sending it out into the real world and knowing that there's a huge possibility you're going to get rejected. That's really scary. But one of the things that helped me and that continues to help me is the fact that I have a circle of pues, so I see like Julieta ahorita, I tried to keep calm because right away like Julieta, like we're comadres, and right now I can't help but to look at the piñata in the background. I was like, oh my god, I need to know the story behind that piñata. Like, what are you planning to do? Where did you get? So
I'm gonna whack it. That's what I'm gonna do.
So it's very important to find your group. And how do you find that group? I think most of us here can tell you the way that we found that group is by going and supporting, going out and I would say scouting open mics, and that's how you find your people. That's how you find your gente, and just trying to connect with them, because we have such an amazing circle of people here. Like any one of us, if you have any questions or you just want to have coffee, get together, just chat about writing. Just reach out to other local writers, local poets, but most importantly, go and support. Go to the events, and that's how you get to find your circle. That's very important. That's a big part of the job as a writer. Go and that's how you do your research. You go and you listen to other writers. You go and you read, pick up books by other writers that are writing, other poets, local writers, whatever it is. That's how you do your research.
True.
My heart is happy. I love that so much. Find your circle, find your tribe, find your hint. That's so beautiful and absolutely true. And that's why something like this is so amazing, because we're all tuning in from different places. It's been a bit difficult, right, this whole past year to get together at an open mic and share. But if we're able to be in the comfort of our own homes and still share the written word with people all over who may not have been able to go in person, but they can watch, they can share. It's to look back on later on. It's absolutely amazing. Thank you. I love that sentiment a lot. And so, Mr. Anthony Ripp, if anyone is aspiring to be a poet or aspiring to be a writer, what advice would you share to them?
Well, typically, I always just tell people, if you intend for other people to read your poetry, if you're not just writing it for yourself, for practice, and you intend for other people to see it, don't ever write something just to prove you can write it, because the reader is not going to feel anything. And as Frank said, they're going to know. And it's going to be, it's going to be colorful. As Julieta said, it's going to have the $10 words, but it's going to be something flat on a page.
Soulless.
Yeah. So it's going to be pretty, right? And it's going to be correct. And it's going to sound, you're going to quickly find the pattern and whatever they were going for. And you're going to say, oh, this is a really good writer. Why did they publish this instead of that other thing? Because this is an exercise. Right, and it's very clear that that's the case. Also, for me, and this ties into what Julieta said. Don't try to be poetic all the time. You know what I mean? Poetry isn't beautiful words all the time. You know what I mean? It's really rusty sometimes, and it's really sad sometimes, and sometimes saying something is crappy is better than using all these flamboyant words, right? Because that's something that. So just give the poem or the piece what it needs. Right? Don't. Nicanor Parra said something that was very important to me many years ago. Todo es poesía menos la poesía. And that's true to a certain extent, because when you're trying to be poetic for the sake of being poetic, it's garbage. It really is. It comes out as flat.
It's shit.
Yes, it's shit, because there's words, but there's no feeling. There's no rhythm. And the most important thing for me is listening to other poets and speakers. I'm a huge fan of spoken word, of the way people convey language. And the worst thing that you can do is get in your own way, politically or religiously or blah, blah, blah. Listen to speakers even if you don't agree with what they're saying. You're not listening because you agree with them. You're listening to them because they know how to speak. They have a certain rhythm. Their inflection is great. So sometimes we do ourselves a great disservice by saying, "Well, I don't agree with what this person is saying. I'm never going to listen to it." It's a huge disservice to you. You don't have to agree with what the person is saying, but there's something to learn from that person, whether we want to admit that or not. So, and obviously, don't ever think you're the greatest writer in the world. You've got something to learn from many from local poets. And I think for us as writers and performers, who I consider to be seasoned, you don't always have to be 100% supportive of your friends. Sometimes you need to tell them, you know what, that wasn't quite right? And sometimes at some of the events when we're hanging out together as friends, oh, that was fantastic, that was super awesome, and this and that, the other, and then they go to another group and they poke holes. It's happened to me before, right? So overly supportive stuff is not helpful to a writer either. You don't want to burn the house down either. But don't be afraid to say, hey, listen, that sounded kind of weird, right? Like, yeah, right? Like, that sounded kind of weird. Is that really where you want to go with it? So I think just all of that, man, just listen. You're not the greatest writer in the world, and you can always grow.
Thank you so very much for those sentiments. And Ms. Julieta Corpus, if you have any advice for aspiring writers or poets, what would you like to share?
I would tell them, or I want to tell them, to read, to surround themselves with all types of genres. That way they're knowledgeable. The other day, I think it was yesterday, I posted a picture that I took of a flower. And I posted a beautiful flower. I just don't know the name of it. And then I couldn't help but think of there's a line of poetry that says, poets walk among names of flowers that they know. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't know everything. And so I know that I need to pay more attention to the names of trees and flowers and plants, so I can put them in my poetry. But I've also been very blessed this past, I think I'm going on a year and a half. to be translating poets from all over the United States, thanks to Emmy Perez, who has a special project, and she's been sending me. My goodness, I've been translating Irene. I'm gonna drop names. Cyrus Casells, who's the new Texas Poet Laureate. I've been translating Irene Lara Silva. I have Normaelia Cantu. I have, oh my goodness, I think I have like 12 to 14 poets that I've translated since last year. And she
Ana
just sent me one
Castillo.
more. Oh, I am feeding off of all of that because I'm translating, I'm straddling those two worlds, and I'm feeding from both. And just the search, one thing that I love about translating is that I go in search of the word that best fits the words of this poet. And so I'm immersed. So read a lot, and also don't be afraid to tell your stories or to tell the stories of your parents or your grandparents. Put them in paper, because there will come a day when they are gone, and who's going to pass on those stories? So don't think that they have to be perfect. Don't think that they have to be polished, because there's always time to do that as you acquire more and more skills. I'm not at the top of my game yet. I'm still learning new skills, new revisions, new ways to approach my own poetry. And I'm amazed sometimes that just by moving a line from the top to the bottom, or the moving one stanza from the top to the middle, or from the bottom to the middle or to the top, it just changes the entire poem. So I'm like, wow, I didn't know I could do that. So I'm still learning. Don't be afraid to learn. That's what this is about.
I love that. Thank you so very much. And so before we jump into the poetry portion of the panel of poets section of the Right Crowd, again, anybody on Facebook or YouTube, if you would like to say hello or leave a comment, please feel free to do so. We want this to be interactive. We just got one come in. Raul Martinez Jr. says, Katelynn, Julieta, Priscilla, Anthony, and Frank, good to see all of you. Hi, Raul. Thank you so much. You're always so supportive. Thank you for stopping by to say hello. And so I would like to do 3 rounds worth, if you all are excited for that. So we can have one poem at a time, and just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And they can be of any genre, and just I'm super, super excited because I'm always in awe. I am always in awe. I see Anthony at the poetry nights, often for the Valley Byliners, and I'm always just wow to be able to read, and you touch people in more ways than you know. And again, also always hearing Julieta is a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I heard Frank and Priscilla last year, and I'm so very excited to experience it again. And so just, real quick disclaimer, family friendly. I know you all are amazing, but family friendly is appreciated. And so, Anthony. And so,
they are.
Okay. Well, I'm excited either way. And so, we can go ahead and get started. One poem for now, and we will go 3 times down the line for a total of 3 shared works, beginning with Mr. Frank Brewster III.
What I'm going to do, since you guys have also touched upon music, my literature is I've taken it. I've taken everything up, not 1 or 2, but 4 or 5 notches, which includes education and teaching from a very young mind, a very young child, to literally adults, where I have taught many adults, and my literature is also being taught at PSJA at the adult literacy level. So what it is I'm going to do, for anybody that is out there and listening to us right now, my literature is also on Spotify, Apple iTunes, Amazon Music, and you wouldn't believe me if I told you, but my literature is being downloaded far more in Europe than anywhere in the world. Europe and Colombia are the 2 countries that are followed by New York. And it's amazing. It is just freaking amazing how they download it out there. And I'll share this particular composition was shared also by El Magazine in España. And we'll see what you think about it. And I'll premise this one last thing. For me, this was something that was talked about just a few minutes ago. All of these, so to speak, are letters that you will read if should you ever read my literature. But I take the name of the person or the thing or the object or what have you out, and there is the composition. And I 98% of my literature, you will not see the name of a person or the name of a place or the name of anything. It is open-ended for you to make your own interpretation, which is the beauty of it. It's not about me, it's about you. And I'll share this with you. And at the end, whatever this is to you, it is to you, whatever it is. But at the end, I will tell you what this is all about. See what you think. Can you hear it?
Estoy apasionadamente enamorado de ti y quiero acariciar tu cuerpo desnudo, besando tus labios, consumiendo mi deseo por ti. Encontré la paz que tanto he buscado a tu lado, pero sufro porque otros brazos se estrechan sobre mí esta noche cuando pienso en ti. Perdóname, mi nuevo cariño, por lo tanto que te amo, pero mi almohada no me deja en paz al tener dos amores y no saber a veces a quién desear. Prefiero quitarme la vida que seguir viviendo en un infierno, sabiendo que dos amores no pueden ocupar el mismo lugar.
So now that you've listened to it, and it's set to music, obviously. My book, by the way, which are available at the website, and they just went online through the website. But you have the book and or books, and then you have another book with only the narration, with a button to listen to only the narration, and yet another button to listen to it with music. And I'll share with you what it sounds with more music in a little bit. But if you've already thought and have cemented in your mind whatever your thoughts are, I will now share with you what it is. Creative writing. That's about my saxophone. Has nothing to do with whatever you have in your mind or however you process the composition. But it's my other love.
Thank you so very much for sharing. It's always a treat, and then especially being put to music. Absolutely, absolutely amazing. And so our next reader, Miss Priscilla Celina Suarez, please share your written work. The floor is yours.
Okay, so I'll share a poem about La Villarreal, which the building's still there, but it's not La Villarreal anymore. La Villarreal. En el valle nos gustan las cumbias, tejano, polcas, guapangos, norteño. They say conjunto is our soul music. Freddie Fender en Los Palominos. Wasted days and wasted nights. Weekly bailes a la Villarreal. Primos in McAllen and Reynosa. Mingle during elaborate quinces of 200 plus guests, shifting from English to Spanish to Spanglish. Hearts beating with the bailes, and as children, we gazed into the dance floor, embraced in the cultures of our raza. That's how we learned to shuffle. Las vueltas, los pasos, the beats that vibrated from the room. El grito was welcome company, spinning out of control, as did the endurance of accordion beats. Los bailes are where we followed our dual identities, de este lado y del otro. La Villarreal was a member of the family, a dance hall in the backdrop of significant occasions in este rumbo, where I first saw Celina, my first spin in Abbas' arms. Footsteps stormed into the nights.
Thank you. I loved it. Thank you so very much for sharing. And Mr. Anthony Ripp, the floor is yours to share your first poem of this panel.
Thanks, and thanks, Priscilla, for bringing up the video. Some of my most memorable concerts were there. So anyway, first poem is Untitled, and it's self-explanatory. It's very anxious, so no curse words. So day 3 of a drinking binge, and everything I love is stretched out on a highway heading west. It's gone, fading in my side view mirror. There's a ghost in my glove box named for my grandfather, who was buried under a tree one June afternoon in the year of the virus. Since then, there's a film strip in my brain that only plays credits over things that are ending. When does this ache end? There's a hum in my brain, like the murmur cicadas make when they decide to wake from hibernation. Their tiny tiptoes on my brainstem are like hammers and ink, like hammers and ink, like hammers and ink. Day 3 of a drinking bench has got me feeling nostalgic. What is this, a throwback? A cutaway to a time when I'm not caught in the canines of loneliness, not being ripped apart like now, whimpering, howling at the beast of a moon, and I'm barking, and I'm barking, and I'm barking like a junkyard dog stretched out on the bench seat of a 1968 stick shift monster with over 200,000 miles of stories to tell that got chucked away like old bones in a tangled heap. Its jaws welded shut like a grandparent in these here Americas, depleted, forgotten, replaced, and they go away when no one's left to remember them. I'm going away because no one remembers me, but that's okay because I'm forgetting too. Vascular dementia brought on by a rope that's tied around my throat, bleeding, just shy of asphyxiation, and I can't breathe. I can't breathe, and I can't breathe. There's a deluge of hallucinations swallowing me. There's an ocean in my brain, but I am fully aquatic. Phylum Chordata, infraorder Cetacea, and I come back to the absurdity of it. Me believing I'm the belly of a whale singing shanties to the night. Tell me the way to get home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. I had me a drink about an hour ago when it went right to my head. Hey, tell me the way to get home. I'm tired and I want to go to bed. Had me a drink about an hour ago when it went right to my head. Hey, 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 I'm no junkyard ghost. I'm no belly of no whale. I'm just drunk again, slumped over my typewriter, writing poetry, typing out questions that I can't answer, typing out excuses. Someone check in on me so I can tell you that I feel fine, so I can lie to you. My house is full and overflowing with self-help books that I can't help but buy. Leather spines and paper bags that I have never touched with my fingertips so they can never be traced back to the basket case of my head. My mouth is dry. This lying, it's heavy. And I'm tired of sitting here pretending I'm a playwright, keeping someone's ghost alive who will never love me back. That someone's ghost is mine. Someone ripped my ribbon out so I can finally get some rest. My fingers hurt. My liver is shot and I'm done writing love songs for loneliness. I'm done. I'm tired and I just want to go to bed. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. It's always an experience. It is always an experience listening to you speak. Thank you so very much for sharing. And Ms. Julieta Corpus, your first poem, the floor is yours to share.
Yes, well, I'm going to share an excerpt from my new translation. This is by Irene Lara Silva. This is Hibiscus Tacos. Lo voy a leer en español. Cuando la muerte se enamora. Ella tenía ojos grises, y no solamente por ser grises, era que contenían demasiada luz. Entre más los veía, más lejana parecía. La primera vez que llegó al camión de comidas ordenó 3 tacos, cada uno de ellos de relleno vegetariano, hablando un español aceptable. Cuando le pregunté qué tipo de tortillas, me dijo, las que creas que vayan mejor. Así que preparé los tacos de Jamaica en tortillas de maíz blanco, los de nopalitos con maíz azul y los de champiñones y espinacas con amarillo. La miraba de reojo de vez en cuando mientras comía. Enrollaba la tortilla ligeramente para resguardar el relleno. Un cuello largo y delgado, cabello castaño claro recogido en un moño suelto. Largas extremidades que deberían ser torpes, pero no lo eran. Había en ella una inmovilidad concentrada, tan fuerte que parecía que el mismo aire vibraba en su entorno. Ninguna inquietud, no observaba a la gente, ni buscaba en su teléfono celular. Se comió los tacos, respiró, añadió un poco de salsa. Por lo demás, dirigía su mirada hacia el interior. Salí del camión para limpiar y reponer lo que usualmente había sobre la pequeña mesa, donde mantenía una selección de rodajas de limón y cilantro y salsas rojas y verdes asadas. Sonreí y saludé a algunos de los clientes que gritaron sus despedidas. Sentí que se acercaba más antes de verla. Asintió solemne con una expresión amistosa pero sin sonrisa. Gracias, me dijo. Estaban muy ricos.
Thank you so very much for sharing. Thank you. Thank you so very much for sharing. And so our second round of poetry begins. And so, Frank Brewster III, the floor is yours to share your second piece.
So I'm going to do very quick sharing with you, and then I'm going to show you what it turns out to be when I set it to music. Esos sentimientos que tengo por ti. Quiero mantener estas emociones y estos sentimientos que tengo por ti, pero se me opaca la ilusión y las esperanzas con cual juega mi mente sabiendo, and so on. So now I take this and I turn it into this.
Quiero mantener estas emociones y estos sentimientos que tengo por ti, pero se me opaca la ilusión y las esperanzas con cual juega mi mente sabiendo que se marchita tu memoria sin haber ya correspondido conmigo, que te extraño, mi cariño, tu ilusivo amante y amigo. Despierto al escuchar tu voz sin estar tú cerca o acostada a mi lado, dándome frío al volverme dormir solo, que tú ahora existes en un fragmento de mi mundo, donde el pasado contigo ha quedado ya muy alejado. Que no daría por estar contigo de nuevo, porque espero al verme en el espejo, sabiendo que los años, cuando nuestro amor floreció, no los quitaron ellos que nos traían celos, con sus palabras de veneno, destruyendo poco a poco lo que para nosotros fue mágico. Despidiéndome quizá la última vez, me da sueño y quiero cerrar mis ojos para verte, que eres lo que más deseo, dándome tu paz a mi vida, que yo te amo y idealizo. Escribiéndote esta carta, lo que en persona ahorita no puedo.
Thank you so very much. That extra aspect is amazing with the music.
Thank you.
It's absolutely amazing. Thank you so very much. And Miss Priscilla Celina Suarez, your second piece to share with us today.
Definitely. So it's a poem I wrote. My mommy passed away about 4 years ago, my mom. And one of the things that I miss most is hearing her voice. Just her normal tone when she would speak would be like 10 decibels higher than other people would think que estaba enojada, but that was just the way she talked. And so this is a poem I wrote about that. Forgotten recipes. There was a spice in her voice we could taste. Sprinkled on the sopitas she'd keep warm with her chismes. A dash of comino, or was it oregano? Chile piquin and a handful of onions to make us tear up with the mood of her cuentos. And a little Joe Grito when the echoes of her farm working youth salted her dish like aguas que traen del mar.
Thank you so very much for sharing. Thank you so very much for sharing. And Mr. Anthony Ripp, your second written piece of the panel.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for getting me so excited about doing this. You guys are fantastic readers. I'm going to do a piece called Manic, and this is just someone who was having a schizophrenic episode and in a manic phase, which we see a lot of now in the medical field with all the death that we experienced with the pandemic. And this has a long explanation, but I want to get to it. So anyway, it's called Manic. It's whatever it is. Play some Hall & Oates, man. Are you rocking in the free world? Can I interest you in living, in back-breaking work, and swinging to the beat? I once saw you dancing on one leg in one wet red shoe with white lines swishing down the side. It made you look fast, blurry. That reminds me, my eyes are blurry. What color is this pomegranate? I can barely make it out, and I'm interested in knowing how you guys see things. What shapes take hold of your cones and rods, your iris? I once sang Iris at the top of my lungs to a blue-haired girl who smoked her cigarettes awkwardly on Christmas morning of all days. She couldn't have waited. Oh, I'm sorry. She couldn't have waited, and I couldn't complain until she drove off for the last time, but even then, life is good. I mean, I'm here, ain't I? Living, reading poetry. I mean, god dang, if you ever hear me complain, break my neck. But no, I'm smiling. I'm standing up here big as life, aren't I? You see me, don't you? Big as a tree. Depending on perspective, of course. I don't mean that I'm as big as a tree, but depending on where you're standing, it isn't far-fetched. One could be as big as a mountain even, as big as a building. The only thing that I can never be as big as is my ego. I mean, I can barely catch up to it, much less be as big as it is. You can see me, can't you? Go ahead. You can answer. I asked you to. Oh, well, never mind. I knew a madman once. When I was a kid, I told him I wanted to be big enough to touch the stars. Can you imagine the grandiosity? You must be looking at me thinking, first he wants to be a tree and now he wants to be the universe. Can you imagine? I'd lasso the moon for you. I heard that in a movie once. Film noir, black and white, in one of those films where the dandies and the dames have such a wonderful exchange of words. It's all very romantic, and I consider myself a romantic. Oh, don't look at me like that. Sure I am. Although I can't stand the thought of cutting flowers. I mean, that just isn't me. I know they look pretty in a vase, but why would I give a woman just one when I could give them all to her on a long stretch of road on a Sunday drive? See, that's what I mean about being romantic, sure. We'd sing along to our favorite song at the top of our lungs, taking in the colors as dotted lines keep the beat like a metronome. But we'd sing off key, of course, but we wouldn't care. I mean, what does it matter? It's all about having a sense of humor. I mean, no one is getting out of here alive. Well, you know that, don't you? Well, it doesn't bother me. I've already fitted myself for a coffin and a suit with a colorful tie. I want to be sure I show up in a tie wherever it is I'm going. I want to make a good impression. I think it increases my odds of getting into somewhere nice, don't you? But what do I know? I'm crazy. Or at least that's what the doctors and the nurses say, I'm crazy. But they're the ones that show up every day for 12-hour shifts, 60 plus hours a week in the middle of pandemic, people dying and waiting in trailers. Now, does that seem sane to you? I'm the one who's crazy? Man, I'm rocking in the free world, reading poetry, still wanting to find love in this great big world. Some blue-haired girl who loved me with the lights on, with no shirt on, candid black and white love. It's last call and I ain't ready to leave yet, love. Is that the first peach of the season, love? It's still not ripe, love. I'll eat it anyway, love. Bellyache, love. Here's a quarter for a single cigarette, love. The color of pomegranate, love. But she's a man-eater, love. Poetic, love. I'm rocking in the free world. Play some Hall & Oates, man. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so very much for sharing. And Miss Julieta Corpus, your second poem of the evening. The floor is yours.
The second poem that I'm going to share this one is from Of Love and Departures, which is my first collection of poetry. And it deals with grief and loss. And in this time of loss, especially, a lot of us have, we're going to have empty chairs at our gatherings, just the memories. But we always have dreams, right? When they come and visit. In dreams, ocean waves reach out to taste you. Cerulean skies discharge multicolored blooms. The living dead shuffle through every city. An armless dwarf narrates her life. An Italian opera moves you to tears. A cloud filled with stars descends at your feet. Ancient gods announce your mother's death. You speak in tongues with strange people. Your childhood town comes alive at your presence. You and your beloved hold a long conversation. Sharp-beaked ravens stalk from high, taut wires. Sinkholes appear to swallow you up. A magic carpet ride is entirely plausible. You see your loved ones alive again in dreams.
Thank you so very much. And we had a comment coming in during that second round from One Book or Novel at a Time saying, wow, amazing pieces of work. Claps, 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 claps.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Rosario. Thank you for enjoying. And our final round of poetry to wrap up the Right Crowd's first weekend and the Panel of Poets panel. We begin with Mr. Frank Brewster III.
Well, again, there's quite a bit of literature for me to share with. If you happen to go into the website, we have 10 programs, and it all began with this one little one here called Mariposa Maria. But long story short, there are colorful illustrated books and literature that we have available, and they're also in dual language. They're a la bilingual, and they are a la dual language, in which you now can either study or read in English or in Spanish. And they come with vocabulary words from Spanish to English, and then from English to Spanish. In addition to that, there are higher thinking skill questions. I know you can't see them, but from your most basic to your most advanced, and there's 10 in each section. In addition to which, I teach the teachers how to teach my literature, and there is a plan of instruction. All of this is set to teach, STAR, ELPS, college ready, and lots of other goodies. But being that this is the last one, I do want to share this with you because I think it's very, very important to the conversation. And this is the abstract as to why I got into it. I'm going to share with you. I'm not anybody with my nose up in the air. No. I'm as humble and as sincere as they come. But while I was working during my 30 years of being a teacher, I noticed some discrepancies with folks that were not from the area, that were coming in from other parts of the world. okay? And I took it upon myself to go ahead and to try and do something. My own school district at the time shunned on me because um, they didn't quite think that what I was doing, or the powers that be, and or the superintendent at that time was something noteworthy, because that wasn't even my field. But I took $3,500 out of my own monies and wrote the abstract, which was accepted when a lot of folks out there, I came to understand, with a lot more education than I had, their abstract was not taken. My point being that I went to Denver, Colorado, and I was out there a week. And as Ms. Celina Suarez was talking about getting to the right people in the right crowd, your title meant the beginning of something brand new in my life. I had yet to write a book or complete any of this, but I knew there was something very special in what I was doing, even though the people in my own school district, except for one, didn't believe in what I wanted to do or what I wanted to begin learning. I was even not dragged, but I was even called into the superintendent's office at the time because I was taking uh, time and monies. I never did that. I was penalized an entire week's pay, which was quite a bit, because I was going to take a week off to go do something like this. You see, my abstract was approved for the National Association of Bilingual Educators Conference, which is a biggie every year. As a matter of fact, I was going to write and rewrite another abstract for New York, in a couple of months, except I have our third grandchild coming along the same week. So I declined not to go. But my point being that every one of us poets here, every one of us here has something to share. And you're very important, Katelynn, as the rest of us are, because you're allowing us to share our stories, and our stories matter. You see, no quería que hicieran a los pequeños sonsos. Because they don't know our language doesn't mean they're not smart. That's irrelevant. Those are two very, very different and conflicting arguments there. And a lot of people that I happened to know at the time, I think, thought that. They equated knowing language and being smart as the same. And now, in what I do in real life and continue to do, I teach doctors and lawyers and accountants and extremely high-powered people that come in from Latino America to speak English. And these are some of the most wonderful, incredible, and incredibly not just smart, but intellectual people I have ever come across. And I had no idea that my life would take full circle around and get to where it has come to now. But I'll share this with you because it's the premise for everything that was to come. Aiding students using Spanish poetry in the acquisition of English. A challenge that faces the growing population of adolescent newcomer immigrants is quickly adapt to speak and write the English language that typically leads to the student's educational failure and is also accompanied all too often by the student dropping out of school. Using poetry as a means to better understand words and their meaning is an avenue that will promote improved listening, speaking, and writing skills that will in turn provide a meaningful interaction in the student's academic and social environment. Due to the close proximity of the United States-Mexico borders and the large population of Hispanic ethnicity, the media plays an important role in the promotion of its culture. In essence, poetry is part of the student's daily life, as It is a constant reminder that through music heard and video shown in the local media, by introducing the students to interpret what they listen to, they will evaluate and analyze the spoken English in a variety of situations and give responses of their own. As listed in Chapter 128.22.5c of the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for Spanish Language Arts and Reading and English as a Second Language refers to the student speaking clearly and, and appropriately to different audiences for different purposes and occasions using present dramatic interpretations of experiences, stories, poems, or plays to communicate. Therefore, the purpose of this presentation is to demonstrate and encourage audience participation to integrate more effectively poetic art as a means of expression that will allow the student to more rapidly adapt to the English language. And that is the abstract that I wrote way back when. And I summarize by saying this abstract is the basis for my production of children's literature. It is with humbleness, sincerity, and a tremendous passion for the betterment of our young minds that I have taken up my own challenge to contribute in a positive manner to further help educate our school children. I am not trying to invent the wheel. I am just making it turn much faster. And that is the abstract that I have worked on and reworked on and has been adopted, to which there are now that many more books. So between my family and I, we have about 16, 17 books and 5 more in the works right now to come out, and the virtual program that is just about to come out. It's already come out in part, but it's coming out even more. And I'll finish with this. As I think, it may be of something good for all of us. This also came out in the Texas Association of Bilingual Educators a few years ago uh, magazine, and it is what I believe it. It is titled "De humildes principios 2A." De humildes principios empezamos nuestros caminos y desde niños padres querían que fuéramos mejores que ellos. En busca de nuestro futuro, algunos de nosotros llegamos a esta tierra donde nos encontramos quizás solos y abandonados. Pasaremos tempestades, calores y fríos en la labor, despidiendo de nuestros cuerpos tanto sudor para llegar a tener una vida mejor y jamás volver a pasar desprecio o dolor. Fuimos y seguimos siendo humildes y muy trabajadores que con o sin sufrimientos suplicamos por dichas mejores. Y de las pobrezas, algunos de nosotros salimos, dejando atrás colonias y barrios, cursando escuelas y universidades donde estudiábamos para llegar en el futuro muy lejos. Pasó el tiempo y aquí estamos, recibiendo beneficios de quienes quizá nunca conoceremos, dando gracias a todos ellos por el privilegio de sacarnos adelante mediante sacrificios e esfuerzos. Y esto fue dedicado y escrito para la conferencia de Texas Asociación de Educadores Bilingües en el año 2014. Y gracias al señor y doctor José Escalante por el privilegio de haber invitadome en ese tiempo para escribir algo para esa conferencia. Gracias.
Thank you so very much for sharing. We appreciate it. We absolutely, absolutely appreciate it. And Miss Priscilla Celina Suarez, your final poem of the evening. The floor is yours to share.
So I'll share a poem in memory of my abuelito Eduardo. The phone rang. After hanging up on the goodbyes of my abuelo, El Colorín, I heard myself talking to the memories in my heart. I want to be free and leave with whoever will let me run loose. But when one loves as free as they say one should feel, I'm never really so. I want to dream in black and white and not feel the breeze as color mixes in. But without the tinted mirrors of this world, I would only wonder about the in-betweens. I want to run to an ejido in the sierras and find the bones of his body, but his bones would have been buried and his spirit would have followed me so far along. I want to know how to hang up on him and never wait by the phone, wondering if abuelo will call home. But without a landline, how would he reach me and ask me to water the plants and ask me to kiss my abuela goodnight and remind me to nurture the birds on their journey north or south and ask me about life after his departure?
Thank you so very much for sharing. That was absolutely wonderful. And Mr. Anthony Ripp, the final poem of the panel of poets from yourself. The floor is yours.
Thank you. This is a short poem. It's called Voodoo. There's a spell on me called you. Splitting atoms down my spine, a mushroom cloud of existential crisis. I adore you. Your eyes are tender safety nets. Can I rest there? Will you take me in until my skin doesn't burn anymore and I'm not some broken creature? I am shy of you. And the butterflies in my gut flutter while my heart spills out my mouth, wanting nothing more than to attach itself to you and the sun on your back. Thank you very much, guys.
Short.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And our final poem of the evening from Miss Julieta Corpus. The floor is all yours to share.
Thank you. I'm going to share one from Voces en la Frontera. This is an anthology that I've been honored to be chosen for, and this is in memoriam de Roberto de la Torre Hurtado, whom we lost in 2020. But this one is for my husband. Y si te cambio el nombre, me morderé los labios cada anochecer para obligarlos a no formar tu nombre. Indagaré qué hacer con lengua y dientes para que no me ayuden a decir, te extraño. Practicaré qué debo hacer al respirar para no exhalar tus dos sílabas con brío, Jorge. Ensayaré la práctica oriental de la meditación para decelerar el ritmo de mi corazón frenético. Y si te cambio el nombre a cielo, y si te cambio el nombre a susurro, y si te cambio el nombre a verano, quizás solo así logre que la masa envidiosa de los enamorados deje de condenarme a vivir esta ausencia. Es demasiada ausencia, amor. Ya es demasiada.
Thank you so very much. What a wonderful conclusion to this panel of poets panel. And again, thank you for taking time out of your day and evening to come and share not only your readings, which is so very amazing and beautiful to listen to, but also your answers and your insights and to be subjected to my questioning. Thank you so very much for taking time to be here. And again, to anyone on Facebook or YouTube who was watching and left a comment, thank you for the support. This has been the first weekend of the Right Crowd 2021, and I couldn't have thought of a better way to end it but than to listen and to learn and to experience. This was so very much fun. And so some final remarks from all of you. Would you like to say goodbye to the viewers? And if there's anywhere else we can find you when this is all done, this is your chance to share some websites or social media or any other things that you would like to share. So final sign-offs begin with Frank Brewster III.
Once again, thank you very, very much for this incredibly important opportunity. I am and can be located at F. Brewster. Well, there it is. Thank you again. Wow, you're amazing, ma'am. You're just freaking amazing. That's the website, as you can see. I also have an email. It is Wow. You think of everything, Katelynn. You're amazing. And if you'd like to listen to my music, there's 7, 8 CDs on Spotify, Apple iTunes, and Amazon Music. So please log in and listen to what I have to share with you. And the point I was trying to make throughout this conversation here is that it's never too late. I was in my mid 30s when I was told I had something having to do with poetry, and I had no idea where that would take me. But thanks to that one educator that pointed me in the right direction, that got this connection for me, a new career opened up. And you never know where life is going to take you, and it is not ever too late. And even at this point in my life, I just turned 62 years young. uh, I just started a Tejano CD. So it's never too late to do something that you enjoy, and especially if you have that drive and passion to do what you want to do for the betterment of yourself and those around you. And that's exactly what it is that I continue to do for the betterment of children, for the betterment of literacy, for the betterment of education, for the betterment of being bilingual, of being dual language, and just for the betterment of learning and having fun with something new and experiencing something new. So, one last time, thank you, Miss Amazing. And wow, what an incredible panel I have been privy to be with. You guys are freaking amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for coming and sharing. And Ms. Priscilla Celina Suarez, where can we find you after this, and or some concluding remarks to close out the panel?
But thank you, Katelynn, for all of this and for inviting me to join aquí on my comadre and my compadres, and it's always fun when we get together. And if you guys want to reach out, you're able to find my social media and my email information on my blog. It's on the screen, pcsuarez.com. And just reach out to me. And I also put on there like projects that I have coming up or events that are coming up. For those of you that are poets, we do have in April, there's actually the Rio Grande Valley International Poetry Festival. So you guys Google that, you're able to find out. I believe they started taking submissions for their anthology already, but that's a great way to connect with other poets in our region.
Thank you so very much. And Mr. Anthony Ripp, any final concluding remarks or where we could find you after this, or final goodbyes?
And I just want to say that just because you have to grow into being an adult doesn't mean you have to grow up all the way. And I think that being a writer allows me to hang out with my imaginary friends. And it's super important if you think that the stuff that you have in a notebook or in your diary or under your pillow or mattress or whatever, if you think the way I used to think that nobody's going to want to hear that stuff, you're going to be wrong on that one. I mean, people need to hear this. There's no right way to write poetry or write a story. The only bad story is the one that never gets told, right? Robert Bly once wrote that sometimes your poetry doesn't truly exist until it exists in a community, and I truly believe that when you get to share that with other people. So people want to hear that, and if you've got an adult or just your friends that are telling you that it's ridiculous to do this stuff, they're wrong. There's an avenue out here. People are desperate to hear it. There's more facilities than ever hosting these events. There's online forums. It's an entire universe now. There's no more limitations. So please don't ever grow up. Keep writing.
Thank you. I love that sentiment so much. Thank you for sharing. And Miss Julieta Corpus, any final remarks, final goodbyes, and where can we find you after this?
Parting is such sweet sorrow. You will find me at Hueso de Fraile. I'm one of the guests. The first Friday of December, I will be there. We start at 6:30, and depending on the number of poets that we have, then we might go all the way to 8 or 8:30. It's music and poetry. First Friday of December, and then on the 11th, I will be part of the open mic at Arte Vivo. Me voy a colar I'm just gonna be there. It's a beautiful venue. Anthony has read there. Priscilla, you need to read there. The audience is amazing. They don't leave. They stay there even after we finish. Yeah, they stay till 10. And please also add me to Facebook or keep up with me on Facebook, because I do have writing workshops coming up in January, and you're not gonna want to miss them. I mix art. I mix cutting words, letters out of magazines. I do hands-on poetry. And we're going to be talking about the different emotions, las casas de las emociones. It will be a bilingual workshop. So stay tuned. Y gracias, Katelynn, for this opportunity. I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you. Thank you. Gracias.
Of course. Thank you again so very much for joining everyone on Facebook and YouTube Landia. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your time. This has been the Right Crowd 2021 for the first weekend. Yay! And what a wonderful, wonderful way to conclude. So hope to see you all in person soon, or if not, virtual Landia. So have a wonderful evening, and thank you again for your time.
Likewise.
Bye.
Hasta luego.